Hey, we're here at the American Monetary Institute conference in Chicago with Keith Hauser of Bellevue, Washington. Keith is a teacher. He teaches English in Korea to junior high kids, and he uses monetary reform as a subject when he's teaching English to these kids. Keith, what are your thoughts about using monetary reform as an educational tool for kids, and what's your way into the subject for them?
Well, it's not the primary subject that I do, but it's I think because money is so fundamental to the way any kid thinks. Like more is better. There are a lot of depending on the age, they tend to make a joke out of how indulgent they are at lunchtime and things like that. So if I get them talking about money and how maybe they can be rich or why they're not rich, generally I can reach them on a more visceral level. So if I can reach them in the sense of their own self-interest, then I can maintain their attention. So I would incorporate monetary reform in with other economic fundamentals like the distribution of income, the three factors of production, and generally try to make it as entertaining as possible, because it's one of the more dry subjects out there. But if I can entertain a 12-year-old kid in another country with this subject, I can reach anyone. So the point is to make it entertaining. So you have to pepper it with jokes and things like that, and ask for their own experience and go back and forth, and not really turn it into a debate, but turn it into a lively discussion by challenging them and poking them a little bit, and of course staying animated and moving your hands and bouncing around and making sure that they can that you can keep up with their energy, because the younger they are, the more your teaching involves crowd control, and the older they are, the more it's about you entertaining them to keep them motivated. Because younger, they're bouncing around; older, they're more just demoralized and end at the light of the academic tunnel. So,
are you able to actually discuss subjects like money creation with kids? Do you ever get there?
Oh yeah, sometimes. I mean, generally I have to insert it into a broader narrative about like fair play. Generally, if I can craft a narrative in class, maybe tell a story or something like that, maybe even include a villain. The villain doesn't have to be a person, it can be like a system, a rigged game or something like that, and kind of build the kids' sense of perceived injustice up to like an emotional level where they start demanding, teacher, why is that's not fair, why should I have to pay interest on money that doesn't that is privately created, when it seems like it should come from the government, which is always a surprise from the kids, that it's not created by the government for the public good, but rather by private banks for the private good. So if I can dwell on the injustice of the situation, the kids, they get emotional about it, and then at the end of the conversation offer them a solution. And of course, there's like a great release, like, it doesn't have to be this way. Because if there's one thing that kids don't like getting told over and over again, it's because I say so. And if there's anything that is drilled into us more often than anything going through school and through work and life, it's things are the way they are, and just deal with it and don't think about it. Be on time, do your homework, forget if it's a relevant subject matter to your daily life or whether you want to learn it, just be quiet, So if I can keep kids entertained, as I said, and work with their sense of perceived injustice, then they'll always get it every time. So, yeah.
Why is the current monetary system unjust, Keith?
Because over 98% of our money is created privately by private banks, and they loan out our money supply to us at interest. And it's insane that a government should have to borrow money that they, in theory, can create themselves. So why should we borrow money from wealthier citizens to finance the public good when the government can just create the money itself, you know. And for example, there's over $2 trillion worth of repairs that are needed in America's infrastructure, according to the American Society of Civil Engineers. And we could pay for it by taxing people, or we could pay for it by borrowing from rich people, or we could just print the money, make the repairs, and it won't cause any inflation because it'll improve the infrastructure, which actually lowers the cost of doing business. So it costs less to drive across a paved road than it does over time to drive across a pockmarked highway day in and day out.
What made the light bulb go on for you?
Probably around the tail end of the Bush dark age, I started to notice the meltdown in the financial market. And I had read, of course, about the rising housing market and the rising price of land. And a lot of my friends started getting into flipping houses. Not all of my friends, or even most of them, but a fair amount. And it didn't make any sense. How can land keep increasing in value when it's not adding to the productive capacity of the country? How can it keep going on forever? And it kind of reminded me of the 90s, with the stock market, the tech bubble and stuff, and how everyone thought that it would keep going forever. And if you look at history, of course, no, it never lasts forever. No bubble lasts forever. And I knew it was going to pop, as a lot of people did. I just didn't know when, or more specifically how, and it kind of frustrated me not knowing what was the main driving force behind the bubble that I thought was going to pop. And of course it did pop eventually, and that just fueled my thirst for more answers, because people were asking me, what do you think? Because I am difficult to shut up and have lots of opinions about other matters. So I thought, I really got to get this one down too.
Is there a first book you could recommend to people?
For monetary reform, Stephen Zarlenga's Lost Science of Money. For the very, very basics of economics, probably Progress and Poverty by Henry George. It doesn't cover everything, but a lot of the fundamentals. It's a great place to start, bad place to end. But Progress and Poverty and The Lost Science of Money are two great books. Thorstein Veblen's Absentee Ownership is really good.
Keith, thanks for spending a few minutes with us today. Best of luck with your educational efforts and helping us frame this issue of monetary reform so people can learn about it.
Thank you, Peter.
See ya.